Morning, Facebook. It's Jerry coming to you today from Guanacaste, Costa Rica, Rythmia. And I don't know how many beautiful Tuesdays in a row we can put together, but it seems like hundreds, right? It's just such a beautiful place. And at Rythmia, we're about ready to get into our rainy season where everything greens up and becomes a jungle for a real short period of time. It's amazing. Yeah, so what is Rythmia? Rythmia is a life advancement center that employs different modalities to bring about something called a soul merger or a soul reclamation. And it works amazingly well. How do we know that? Over 14,000 guests have been through the door, and 97.46% of them claim a life-changing miracle during their stay. So out of every 1,000 people who complete the program, 975 say that they had a miracle during their stay. Crazy. And that miracle is generally a soul merger. The better part of that is 90.33% at the 6-month mark say that this was the week that changed their life. And that miracle is still working in their life. It's truly amazing stuff. Over 2,200 TripAdvisor comments and reviews, and 99% of them are 5-star. Crazy stuff, right? Just crazy stuff. Yeah. So in this little weekly talk, we talk about messages from the medicine is this one. And this is number 5 of messages from the medicine. And each series of 10 have a different theme. And they're just revelations that we're experiencing the medicine that I'm trying my best to put into words as little information and data points that help us with our journey to becoming a beneficial presence on the planet. And this is we're living in very interesting times. You know, there's a Chinese proverb that says, may you live in interesting times. Well, I find it hard to believe that there could be more interesting times than these times. And probably every generation has probably felt that, but I really feel it because there's so much turmoil, so much conflict, and social media has had a way of heightening those conversations and heightening those rifts. And that, I think the differences of opinions that get consolidated and blown up are a doorway to a new healing and a new understanding. I really, really believe that. And one of the things is that you have different factions of people. You have like the left and the right. You have, and it's interesting because then you have the people that believe the left and the right are one side, and where the other, there's all different tiers of this thing. But in times of great turmoil, we have the possible start of world wars, the possible devaluation of the American dollar, rampant inflation, unemployment. There's all kinds of things that are going on. And during these times, there's different groups that emerge. And so there's a big entitlement group now, a group of people that really feel entitled and feel in some way, shape, or form that others should take care of them, or the country should take care of them, or their neighborhood should take care of them. And I'm not for or against any of that. But I'm going to tell you what I've seen. So in different eras, right, different things come and go out of style. And this is the era of entitlement. People want things for free. I mean, Andrew Yang was proffering a salary for being you. Lots of different entitlements. So what I found in the medicine is kind of the opposite of that. So the joy in the human experience comes out of duty and obligation. It does. Commitment, duty, and obligation are the cornerstones of having joy in the human experience. Because out of obligation, we can then be our brother's keeper. We can help people. We can have children. If you think that life changes at the moment a child is born, at the moment a child is born, why does life get richer? Because we found something more important than ourselves. Up until that point, we may have had a feeling that family was more important than us, but deep down, we thought it was us. But then, when we see that baby's face, when we smell that newborn, and when this bond starts growing, and we realize that we love something more than ourselves, that is the doorway and the gateway to a beautiful part of the human experience, right? So it is in giving that we receive, right out of the Bible, right? It's in giving that we receive. Not necessarily the giving of things, but the giving of an importance greater than us. Now all of a sudden it gets rich. So duty and obligation, commitment, duty, and obligation are things that are not in style. They are not in style. But just because they're not in style does not mean they're not the key to your fulfillment and your contentment, because they are. Now, nature, at its most ingenious, found a way to force this on us through sexual pleasure, right? So how does it work? We're young, we're free, we're Peter Pan, and we have sex, and the next thing you know, someone's pregnant. So all of a sudden, because for men, the Peter Pan syndrome will last as long as you let it. But for men, that impregnation becomes the start of duty and obligation. And then if we can extend that duty and obligation to other things, our life gets exponentially richer. So what am I talking about? Well, let's say we had this experience where we merge back with our soul. And all of a sudden, we realized in our journey that we were this 400 trillion to one shot. And that life was this gift, this incredible gift. And then we saw that we are all important and not important at all. And we saw something where the nature of the true expression of our soul and this embodiment was shown to us, how we can be a beneficial presence in the world. We get this vision and we capture it. Now I captured that vision, and that vision is now my lodestar. So I can become the greatest piano player who ever lived and bring peace, joy, and harmony to millions of people through my playing the piano, right? And that becomes then a transference of something that is more important than me. And now all of a sudden, because if it's just a desire, it will fade. But if it's an obligation and a duty, if it is my contribution to this world, it will never fade. So a lot of, and I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm not a thought leader. I'm just a guy who's done a lot of medicine, who happened to be in a position that some of this stuff landed and rested with me, right? But thought leaders always talk about awareness. And awareness is so important. And a lot of people think it means wokeness or something, but it doesn't. It means the awareness of how fortunate we are to have this life, the awareness that this body is finite. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Sometimes it'll have all of them in one day. If you get struck by lightning, you won't know it. But for most of us, there's a natural progression of the seasons of life with a beginning, a middle, and an end. The awareness that that's happening is the awareness that Earth time becomes a timer for us. So the most precious thing that this body can have in this existence is time. So awareness is, I'm going to be aware of how lucky I am to be alive, of the fact that this body is finite and it is ruled by time. My spirit's infinite and is not ruled by time, but my body is ruled by time. So I have this long to become a beneficial presence. And then with this awareness, I can now say, this is my duty and obligation. And from that duty and obligation, we can now get some other things in line. How long is this going to take to do? How long is it going to take before I master it? How many times am I going to want to quit? What is the most important thing to me? The important thing to me is that that lodestar is my duty and my obligation. And because of that, I have to make agreements with myself to fulfill that. As they said in the Bible, in fulfillment of the prophecy. That is your hero's journey. And the fulfillment of your highest self, you have to make agreements with you that you're going to keep that important. What is hard about that? Well, a lot of things can get in the way of that. The first of which, personal comfort. Hey, it's easier to sit down than it is to lift weights. It's easier to sit down than it is to carry that woman's groceries across the street. It's easier to sit down than it is to mow the lawn. Personal comfort for most people is a huge motivator. And when we start making agreements that override that is when we start to get progress to our lodestar. The more people we put above ourselves, the more important we make that. That we are also going to offer and to surrender our sustenance to this particular thing. If you ever watched, I have being followed by falcons, which is crazy. I have these falcons that are following me all over the place at Rythmia. I know that sounds crazy, and I'm sure it does sound crazy, but I've become super interested in birds. So we have a tremendous bird life here. We have this morning 3 red-tailed macaws were fighting each other. The falcons were flying around, blackbirds, bluebirds, and I saw a bluebird. There's a nest of a bluebird, and that bluebird, that mother was feeding these 3 chicks, and I'm thinking, that mother has this, she was taking her own food and throwing it up to feed these chicks, giving of her very sustenance, the only thing she has. That bird has contentment because it's clear there's something much more important than it in the mix. And that obligation, and we can do it with anything. It's an awareness transference, an awareness transference that so for me, it was, I had a lot of karma to clear in this life, right? And in the journey I was told to start Rythmia. Well, it was clear that I had to put this over my reputation, my financial well-being, my comfort, my desire to be other places and do other things. I had to put this first, way first. And then I had to make agreements that no matter what anybody says about me, I'm not going to quit. That no matter what happens financially, I'm not going to give up. That no matter how hard it is to do this, that I'm not going to give into it, and that I'm going to take care of this every day before I take care of myself. Wow. Now, in the me world, which is what I call this like little time frame we're going through, we're training and being trained to be less effective humans, right? And to worry about our thoughts, our feelings, our physical limitations are the most important. So if you tell me your thoughts, feelings, and understanding of your personal limitations are the most important thing for you, that is the single most important thing for you, then I'm going to tell you that you're not going to go anywhere. And when I say not go anywhere, you're going to go, your soul is going to continue. I don't mean go anywhere there. I'm saying that you're not going to be a beneficial presence this go around in this planet at this time. And I want you to be. I want you to be because through that door, the pursuit of that becomes all the gifts, the feeling of real worth, mastery, obligation. What a great thing to feel. Obligation. It's a motivator, obligation, if used right. So I know that this is counterintuitive to a lot of the culture and teachings of these times, right? It's counterintuitive, but it's very, very, very real. That pleasure seekers or finding the easiest way is not the path to contentment or fulfillment. Not that the pursuit of pleasure doesn't have value. Quite frankly, if you're committed to your lodestar and you keep your word and you keep your promises to yourself, and you keep your word, you keep your promises to yourself, and you bake in cheat days, like whether you're on a really strict diet and there's a day that you can have pizza and apple pie. Man, that pizza and apple pie tastes much better than if you allow yourself to have pizza and apple pie every day. So it's the mix of these things that bring about this achievement, and it's the commitment to these things that make you feel valuable. It is, because value is a learned thing. Most of us, by the time we're 16, we've been told by a loving parent or a non-loving parent, a loving relative or a non-loving relative, a loving teacher or a non-loving teacher, a loving neighbor or a non-loving neighbor, that we're nothing and that we will amount to nothing. We're usually told that. So what are we? We're ripped, stripped bare, and pushed out onto our own. Now we have to create our own value. Yes, you have intrinsic value as a being in this planet, no greater than the person next to you or the person next to him. The earned value comes from our commitment, our obligation, and our pursuit of being a beneficial presence on the planet. That's it. That's where it comes from. So understanding this is what I call awareness. That's just awareness. Being aware of the real truth, the real truth of life. And that is the real truth. It's 400 trillion to 1. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Your body is finite. You will die. This body will die. You live forever. What are you going to do with this opportunity? This life. I don't want to talk about past lives or future lives. This life. What are you going to do with it? I hope you get to experience contentment and fulfillment. That's it. That is my greatest hope for you. Because if you're feeling those things, you've decided to become a beneficial presence to your children, your family, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your community, your neighborhood, your job, your company, the world. You've decided that you wanted to do that at some level, and you made something more important than you. And therein lies the gift. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. Believe this or not, I have a falcon looking at me right now, which sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Thank you for taking the time to do this today. And I love chatting with you. Please do two things. Buy these books. These are my books. And come to Rythmia. Come here. Experience this thing. I am so used to seeing people go through this transformation where they come in torn apart and they leave glowing and ready to take on the world and change the rest of their life. I'm so used to it that I'm used to it. And I want to tell you something. There's a saying that you can get used to anything. So I was from Scranton, and then later the greater northeastern Pennsylvania, the town of Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. And that not picking on Stroudsburg or northeastern Pennsylvania, but that the vistas, what you would see, became normal to me. It's not the most attractive part of the world for most of the year, but that became normal to me. And then I moved to Malibu, California. And I swear to you, I lived on the PCH, and I drove up and down the PCH every day. Well, in that first year, because the PCH hugs the Pacific Ocean, you can see it every step that you're on the PCH, you're looking at. I should have been in 12 car accidents because I was constantly in awe and looking at the ocean. 7 years later, I very rarely looked. Very rarely looked. So I guess what I'm saying is you can get used to anything, right? You can get used to anything. And awareness overrides that getting used to it. So if you can, keep this in your awareness. Keep this in your awareness. And I get used to seeing these transformations every week. Usually between 80 and 90 of these transformations every week. But when I bring a set of fresh eyes in here, people come to visit me or whatever, and they get to see it, they're blown away by what they're seeing. So please, please, please come here and experience this week at Rythmia. You'll be forever changed as a result of it. Cheers. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week. Ciao.